So I
Okay.
ran over there. I was like, I looked at it literally cut off right as I was walking up. It like
They were coming up?
No, no,
Oh.
my meter ran out right as I walked up.
Okay, guys, rolling.
All right. Can you hear it? Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So we had an opportunity already to speak about all of your photojournalism and the photography and the incredible life that you've lived and experiences that you've had there. But I want to talk a little bit about the transition from photography to filmmaking. When was that moment for you when you were saying that, you know what, this is what I'm going to do next?
Yeah, as I said earlier about being a storyteller and how you use that technique and how you say it. And I always thought stills were the way to say it. To me, after trying writing, which was so frustrating, it took me 3 months to do a story that I knew correspondence could do in 2 days.
Yes.
And that was very frustrating. But I knew my visuality in coming into play, telling a story, added to the written word. But what really captured me seeing stories were like understanding the history of film.
Right.
Going back and understanding, like, let's say, for instance, the, not Matisse Falcon, but even going back earlier than that, going to La Savage on front, about people who are manipulated by power exchange.
Okay.
And this was a story, a French story about these aliens adopted human pets.
Okay.
That was one.
Yeah.
And I go back to Metropolis, which is to me a brilliant movie that shows, again, the power clash.
Yeah.
Or the power exchange, where the rich are living on top of the buildings, and the poor are working below the buildings.
Right, right. There've been a few different films that have that archetype as well in some
Exactly.
capacity. Yes.
And that, when I think about where I grew up in Compton, and the gestalt of the world,
Yeah.
you always have this power exchange. No matter who you are, where you're at,
Yeah.
somebody wants to be on top, someone wants to be on the bottom. Sometimes
Very
it takes
true.
naturally, and sometimes it's coerced. So everywhere I go, people were always the same to me. At the end of the day, as you cut to the short of it, the poorest person still wants the same thing as the richest person. It basically be happy and be left alone.
Yes.
And have respect.
Right.
Now the rich, when they take it the wrong way, dominate it. I mean, it's like they become super rich. That's why we have child labor laws. That's why we don't have, slavery anymore, allegedly. The only legal slave you can have in the United States, for instance, is being a prisoner.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
and
absolutely.
we have more prisoners than any other
Any
country
nation in the world,
Exactly. And that's always intrigued me. And I have a lot of friends who end up, when I traveled early on, and I come back to Compton, first thing from would say, hey man, you need a place to stay or hide? No, man, what's up? Oh man, we know how hard it is. No, I'm okay, it's there. But the paranoia we all have, who
Yes.
are being incarcerated or being arrested or any of that, and that power exchange. These are low rung people on the low rung of the police
Yeah,
department,
absolutely.
and they take it on the lesser. So that power exchange always fascinated me. And somehow, if I was able to convey that to people as a whole, I felt so much could be starting to heal,
Oh,
not
absolutely.
heal.
Yeah.
And so telling that story, I've always been driven on how much more similar we are than different, and how it becomes a class struggle between power and the and the world without power, how they use it. I mean, ideally, the powerful would like us to work 70 years and die the same dimes and get any
Absolutely.
retirement,
Exactly.
and the rich don't want to do anything other than exploit.
Yes.
And at what point and how much money, and I won't say certain actors as a joke maybe or not, they say we want all the money. We don't need all the money. I'd
No.
always be the one to say, hey man, one actor great, I love him, but man, I want all the money. I said, no, you don't need all the money. And he would laugh at me, but the brother, is a good brother at the end of the day, but it's a joke. But that's what got to me, telling that story, conveying how much we have in common. And if I can get that across, if I can go to like let's say Scotland,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
say, hey, the Scottish have the same problems we have. They only manifest it certain ways. When I start laughing at Irish jokes when I first started living in England and substituted black, then I understood. Whoa,
Yeah,
boy, that's
yeah.
not funny anymore. And if I can convey that, and Prince Charles was a charming man. I felt,
Yeah.
really like he was being put out to pasture,
Mm-hmm.
and yet he really tried to do the right thing, and he
Mhm.
has a good feeling, and that's what got me into when he tells stories, because we all have a similar story, and not necessarily exploitive, and so that's what got me into telling real stories
Mhm.
in a way that other people can understand them.
So truly showing the more of the similarities that we have in our differences.
Absolutely.
And while also again really highlighting the power structure that we have, even like the caste system that is out there in that way. That's interesting that you've chosen your medium in order to do that. Now for yourself, seeing again, talking about telling the stories and seeing it, photography and again, filmmaking essentially is moving photography, right? In
Series of still pictures.
Exactly, a series of still pictures. For yourself, who are the individuals, and even for yourself, in the films that you've created? Like, what is it that you look for while creating that? Like, is it a specific? Is it from the lighting to this just the story itself? Like, how are you conveying that story to your audience?
Well, for instance, I did a feature called The Pet.
Yes.
And the feature involves power exchange.
Mhm.
And it becomes from a woman who is like a good person, who works hard,
Mhm.
can't make it economically,
Mhm.
being evicted. She loses her cat, and she's befriended by an aristocrat from
Okay.
Liechtenstein,
Okay.
the world's richest country
Mhm.
per person. And he offers to take her in terms of helping her to pay for the cat's funeral, bring the cat out to her place. But he convinces her that she basically is in need of help.
Mm.
And so he, in some respect, he could have taken advantage of her.
Mhm.
But in his respect, he just wanted a companion that would replace his long lost dog, the award-winning dog that he took a lot of
Correct.
pride into.
Okay.
So I wanted to convey that story on a power exchange level.
Okay.
In the movie, he gets corrupted and loses her because he wants to show her off, and he shows her off to the wrong people. He's an investor.
Okay.
First and foremost.
Okay.
And as an investor, he invests in human trafficking.
Yes.
But he doesn't get his hands dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And he invests in the stock market. He invests in cattle,
Mhm.
grain, etc., and commodities. So this is another investment. But when he opportunity comes that he wants to go ahead and try an experiment, he
Yes.
does, and then he understands what it meant to be taken advantage of,
Interesting.
and he loses her, and he becomes very despondent. So and he loses her because of an accident at the place he wanted to display her with.
Correct.
So the Pet 2 takes place when he actually, it's
Mhm.
a tragic end.
Now, really quick, I'm sorry. What role what role did you spend in the movie The Pet? What was your role in this?
Director,
Okay.
writer, producer, financier, and so many.
This was entirely your baby.
Yeah, this is my baby.
Okay.
And I couldn't get it funded, so I had to
Okay.
use my own, whatever money I had.
Mhm.
I just gotten back from a situation in Zimbabwe where I almost lost an eye. I thought I did,
Oh,
and I was
goodness.
very despondent in terms of what I'm going to do next. So I felt very weak,
Mhm.
very vulnerable.
Mhm.
So in part, I became like the pet.
Mm.
And just what made me, I use different techniques. Like I showed you a book about my pet bear.
Yeah, absolutely.
I use that as an aid to recover.
Interesting.
It's
Okay,
like a
okay.
PTSD, and how do I get out of it?
Right,
So the pet
right.
came from me being that vulnerable and having to be trusting so much.
Mhm.
And like I said, the next movie I want to do is The Pet 2, one
Right.
of the next movies, and
Mhm.
that's where he picks up and decides, he's going to provide a safe haven for those people needing that.
Mhm.
And again, it's a positive movie forward, and but it should be very funny and hopefully be well taken by the matter that be.
How do you, for instance, when we're looking at creatives and you're creating your own films out, again, from your entire journey that we've talked about today, working from doing, from from everything that you've been working on, okay, you want to talk about the specific
The
tools.
tools, yeah.
So again, I'll talk about that in one moment. But can you speak to a little bit the power of the creatives and taking power back. You've worked with all these different entities, and now creating for yourself, being able to do that. How is could you speak to the importance of artists actually creating for themselves in this day and age?
Well, my reflective on that is other people aren't going to do it for you,
Mhm.
and you have to make a choice. And that's how I learned a lot of things I didn't find out about. Like I had to learn sound, I had to learn coloring, I had to learn making film, and I had to learn editing, and so many different elements. And in my
And you've been self-taught with these things as well?
self-taught largely,
Okay.
and but intensively self-taught. And I don't play. When I first started in photography to make money, I decided on look at the best books out there on the street. That is, on the newsstand you go through, you see. I grew up in an age just says Look, Life, Collier's, We're Dying.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember those books that you looked at to reflect the week that was.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if I'm not that good, I shouldn't be competing.
Mm.
So I went out there and said, I knew I was that good. I wouldn't even look at a bad picture. It
Right.
came to me, and the same way with the pet. I used elements of the pet that I knew as an artist. And I consider myself, it took a long time to admit as an artist. It wasn't until my agent said, hey, you make more money as an artist. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like,
It's true.
it's like, I took like the Spirit of Ansel Adams, for instance,
Okay.
and put that scene in the pet. We shot
Yeah.
on a Panasonic 1080p.
Interesting.
And so I put a vertical straight climb
Right.
with a new girl climbing up the wall. I hadn't seen that before.
And that seems, and again, I can't wait to watch the film itself. But that's far more artistic than you're
It
seeing
is.
more saying. Yeah,
It largely visual. I wanted to make it captivating. I mean,
Yes.
I had a choice. We used like a Panasonic 1080p,
Mm-hmm.
and before we cast it, or before I cast it, I wanted to the scene the vertical, the vertical, the vertical height,
Mhm.
vertical climb, and so I took my little Panasonic down to Black's Beach, and and she was playing around, running into the wall, and instantly I saw her go into the vertical wall, but she started to slip, and I had just before I was going to go and help her, I said, I'm going to cross limbs, and she's going to slip if I get there or not.
Right.
So I stopped,
Yeah.
and the shot's in the movie, but it's very dramatic, and it's again like the snow in Utah. We
Yes.
used a place in Utah that was just out of beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm
yes.
thinking you can't get the lighting, the studio, the sound stage, take it where God made it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And he made the most beautiful scene. We shot in a cave that was condemned and everything, but you know what? We're only gonna be there in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and God gives us right. We're gonna do it because our goal is this. I wanted to set the cave like the self-selling pit in a commodities market,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're using a lot of the tools then we had, that employed to make it visual.
Okay.
I wish I had some of the tools that are now available. Now.
And again, so speaking of tools, I want to ask you about, like, for instance, the Z6 and the Z9, and then the Raptor and the things of it. Like, how would you utilize these tools, and what do you think about these tools now that we have?
I think they're brilliant. I mean, I'm looking at, I use the Z9
Okay.
as my principal photography, but I still keep my D5
Okay.
because, when you put on a long lens, I like the weight of it, I like
Mhm.
the feel of it, and I'm
Oh.
used to it, and I like,
Hold it
and I
up,
love
hold it
the,
up, the Z9.
Which one is that one? So we have one of them here. Which one is that one?
the D5 is this one up here,
Okay, so we're using this one here. So the
Yeah.
Z5 here, and
Yeah.
what was in this one is
and this is the Z9.
and this is Z9 here.
I mean,
So, and you love to use an X. We talked about it earlier. The Nikon is like, it seems like, again, I look all around your beautiful space. There's so many Nikons here.
they're the glass.
Yes.
The glass, I mean, I had to use Canon for a period of time because the way they rotated, the way they zoomed, and you had to use it in what's called a blimp
Okay.
for a soundstage,
Okay.
so it makes no noise at all. So I had to leave Nikon. I always had my Leica be
Yeah.
backing me up on another shot,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to leave my Nikon behind and go with Canon because
Mhm.
Nikon was using push-pull on zoom, for instance, 8200, and Canon would use you turn it and
Okay.
it would focus internally.
Right. Right.
So that and using a blimp prevents you from doing a lot of things. The blimp is encased.
yes. Yes. You have one right over here.
Right over there.
Correct.
And there's a picture of it actually.
Mhm. Do we have it right in front of
He's
us?
got it on B-roll.
Okay.
So I went with Canon for so long. And then when Sony announced it was coming out with the mirrorless camera that would be silent,
Mhm.
absolutely silent, because when you're shooting on a set, it's a fine call.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you can hear the shutter going a little bit. You hear it sounds like artillery shell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And but the sound guy, oh, as long as it clears the sound, and you shoot off dialogue, you don't get the you're not shooting the shutter and they're actually saying something. You wait till that breath when you're taking. But it's a complicated scenario, and because actors may be listening for it invariably and throw them off. So you don't want to do that. The idea of being on a set is you're invisible, totally invisible.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so
I've been on enough of them, it's
Right.
just like, hey, don't make a sound, don't make a move.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Because you can adjust it a lot easier because they're always quiet. They're rangefinders, so they don't have the mirror movement. But so I switched from Nikon to go to Canon.
Okay.
But then when the mirrorless came out, my using the blips, I could go with Sony, which takes that big burden of carrying a blimp around. The blimp weighs 2-3 times more than a regular
the
camera
tool itself. Yeah.
right? And they cost a lot of money to boot. And so when that happened, I went to Sony,
Right.
and which invariably I don't really criticize Sony, but I did not like it at all.
Yeah.
For numerous reasons. But when Nikon came out,
I don't like what they did with the whole Spider-Man universe either, so I'm with you.
Oh yeah. and the program was not up to Nikon. Then had a really strong program. Canon was always adequate, but and there's no problem with their CBS.
Seems like a go-to for a lot of people.
It's
especially
easy.
Americans. I feel
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And it was a good camera. It had good lenses, but Nikon always had the lenses to me. So that's right. And because they were so sturdy, I remember I used Nikon during the war shit and picking up off the mud and dirty and everything, and it still worked. So you get you start depending on things like that.
It's interesting, the tools the Japanese make, I mean, everything from their cars to, again, their cameras, it seems they're extremely durable and extremely dependable. So,
Z6. Z6.
yeah, so this one, this one.
No, that's Z6.
The Z6?
Yeah.
Well,
See if you
talk
can pick that one up, Dean. Show us what you can do
about
with
it's
that.
on the thing. I didn't want to knock it off the.
Can we? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we didn't
talk
wanna
about
knock it off
the advent of the Z6 and the mobility of it. Well,
Well,
the
and
gimbal.
then Nikon progressed over to the Z6 Filmmakers Kit, and
So
that
which
was
we have right here, which is
and that turned out pretty adequate. I was impressed by that. Again, it doesn't have the feeling of the Z9, and still I use the Z6 for when my friend's camera or playing with it. Unplug it. Actually, unplug it. You can unplug that? I think so. So the
you have it on this gimbal right here.
yeah, this plays well. It gives me a good, I think it's 24 frame, not 24 frame, it's 24 megapixel.
And what do you have you used this specifically for?
Pickups, and I give it to assistants to do behind the scenes. When I'm doing a commercial shoot or I'm doing a key art shoot, I have them play with this while we're shooting.
Okay.
And but it's a good go-to camera. The gimbal works incredibly well, and it's well balanced at the end of the day. It doesn't have the cage and everything, but it does do everything but. And the Atmos, I really love that. It's a good storage unit.
Nice.
So the Atmos and the viewfinder, and it feels good in the hand.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's a great setup here. It seems like you can do so much with it.
You can. I understand that the Z6 III is supposed to have even much more improved, but playing with just looking at the RID, I'm impressed by that. But the things I have against, you don't have ND filters. You have to get those artificially. Where the RID has built-in NDs and it's a lot more creative control. If you don't have certain filters or additional to it, it seriously hamps your style. I'm a lighting expert in terms of coming down what I'm using. I use a wide variety of color cast, speed.
That's an art in itself. I think people don't understand lighting. Like those are artists who are setting up the lighting.
Absolutely.
It's such an art in itself.
It's like using a painter's paintbrush.
Absolutely.
It's the same kind. You're working on a canvas, and I call it as God's canvas, whatever you're painting on there. But the feeling of combining that with people, a story, is intriguing. I was trying to explain one picture here, and it took like 15 minutes to explain one picture, but every picture is a 15-minute explanation. And how less you can, my idea when I write a script, which I'm doing right now, finishing off another script, is to put all the words I need to it and then go through and cut every word out, what was not necessary. So I actually shoot it like with words, but then supplant it when you're making it without words and say the same thing.
Yeah, it's almost like you were speaking to France, like Coco Chanel said, before you leave, take one thing
Right,
off. You're doing
exactly.
the exact same thing. You're taking one thing off prior to you doing it. Yes.
You want the feeling behind it. You want the
Yes.
soul, like you said earlier, of the image and what you're doing. But and the feeling. It's like on my website, I say, I don't so much as take a picture as I feel a picture. And that's when Leica comes into play, because every time you take a picture, you got it click.
Yeah.
And you just like, oh, that's it. I'm going. And we coming from the school of when ASA 24, 25, up to maybe 200.
Okay.
Using Kodachrome or Ektachrome was the tail end, the high end, to make it happen. Now you can go 5,000 ASA, 2,000 ASA. These just incredible. So I came from a school where 34 frames or 35 frames in a camera was the norm. So you had to watch and be very careful of what you're shooting. And you asked earlier about my period in New York was large format. I'm shooting 4.5, 8.10, and there you maybe shoot 20 or 30 Polaroids, which cost $2 or $3 per Polaroid before you get the shot you're looking for. And every shot costs money, So you spend $2,000-3,000 just testing and getting your film right. But the idea of using tilts and swings were incredible. What you can control, and that's why I love that technical part of shooting a large format. And we're losing a lot of that. It's a shame because I haven't seen anything comes close. Well, you can use Sinar and things with digital backs.
But do you think that going back to film or utilizing film in conjunction with some of the digital is a better way to go about it? Or how when you see it in terms of an artist, what do you prefer?
I think we're going to go back to film.
Okay.
Although between, let's say, Lightroom and Adobe and, some of the digital editing things allow you to give the same cast as film. You can duplicate Ektachrome in Adobe. You can duplicate Tri-X, for instance, in Adobe.
Okay.
But it doesn't have the same feeling. I mean, I shot this, even though it gets muddy, it loses some of the clarity, like this picture I was telling you about, I shot of Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes.
I mean, which is sold for €97,000.
Yes.
I said, I can see the mud, I can see if it was shot digitally, it'd be a lot cleaner when it's blown up so much, but it wouldn't have the same feeling, it wouldn't have the same soul.
There's an aura with the film that I
Right.
think digital doesn't have because, and again, like you said, there's soul to it because the grittiness that it has.
And it's spirituality. I think the connection. I mean, when you first see the first film being exposed and put in a tray and seeing it come to light and adjusting it by dodging and highlighting certain parts, it's magic. It's magic,
that's
and you
awesome.
lose that magic. I mean, I have a digital darkroom, of course, and I can do everything technically that is there, but it doesn't feel the same. And I miss the formaldehyde. I miss the smell. I miss the touch, the tactile
I can see
feelings
that.
of squeezing over the eyebrow and making that chemical a little bit higher on that particular area and playing with it like a true artist. And
I
you
love that.
can't see that necessarily. You can. I mean, they have the dodging tools and everything in Lightroom and the other software, but it's Photoshop offers you almost a too clean a case. It reminds me too much of Elon Musk. That everything is perfect. Like part of my feeling is that in Pet 2 it sort of comes out too that we have 10 billion people, or coming up to 10 billion people on Earth. We don't need that many to survive. And the rich, again, going back to Metropolis, you don't need that many workers. And the time will come when we have to get rid of like 8 billion. We don't have those calamities like the Black Plague, which wiped out,
half the
third
population.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going that path. We don't even see it. Now, restaurants are going up in Japan, even one in Pasadena, that uses servers totally robotic.
Oh yeah, there's this one place that has the conveyor belts that just bring the food to you.
Exactly. The hotels
Yeah.
are going that way.
Yes.
And it's not going to be much longer before we realize that we're at a crisis.
Or is it? Or well,
I was going to say, what can people like us, that car and our network do to help you next with the next part of your journey?
Well, in my case specifically, helping with the film, helping with the techniques that I want to use. I want to use the digital soundstage for making Pet 2. There is a period when there is a big convention of how rich we are and how much better we're going to be. I want to be able to make that in the background, digital soundstage, using my actor announcing people as in a Trump rally. Why we're getting better, why we can, curtail so many people existing. Remember, this is the future,
yes.
and it may be the future, but you don't have to go down not fighting it.
What excites you, for instance, in doing that and how we can help and everything in that nature? But for instance, utilizing from Nikons and everything, transitioning to actually utilizing some of the Red Raptors or anything. How do you feel artistically, or what excites you about utilizing that tool?
That's what excites me. Exactly. I don't know. I mean, it's the future and what it can do. I know one thing, that until you do it, you don't know.
Okay.
And I think that the limit is limitless. It limits your imagination. I mean, things that we couldn't even imagine, the memes that are being made today, commonplace.
Yes.
Back in 15 years ago.
True.
The lighting packages that I'm using right now, I can put into a small safe and take anywhere and can light up a 20,000 square foot studio.
Absolutely.
And the lighting I'm showing you with the roller light
Mhm.
is like, hey, that could be used for flash and
For
this,
sure.
and where other companies have to say. I remember coming from a time when Normans and Valcars were the only flash systems you could use.
Yes.
Now they don't even exist.
Mm.
And even ProPhoto is saying, hey, we have to start using Kino Flow type lighting. So,
Right.
Continuous lighting.
In terms of the way that a red has been, has been utilized, and what we have seen, and again, like you were saying, not being able, you're excited about the possibilities.
Right.
That is, what is it about it, again, when you see it? What makes it so different from some of the other tools and cameras that are being utilized today?
It's how it's being used. I mean, it's like, for instance, right behind you, you will see so many different light sources. Small Kinos and
Right.
this kind of thing. You have the light packages. I can mark those up, and in something, a system like the red or anything, you can go to your computer and see exactly, pre-visualize what you just shot.
Right.
Before, when I had to shoot commercial photography, I'd have to wait a full day or 4 hours for a lab run.
Right.
And they go in and do a test and figure out where it goes, and then I go ahead and execute the shot. Now you can do it in real time. I can look right now and see what's on the screen, how I can change it.
Right.
I can dial in my color. I can recreate backgrounds. I can do so many things that you heretofore couldn't imagine doing. And I think that's where the advantage of and the quality. Red at 8K, you can throw out any still image that you need and do something else with it. So all of you do that facility of that. But I like the filters, the factors, all the things that go around the red that make it work.
Do you believe that it is, because we're talking about art and being an artist, do you feel that people that are creating with the red are taking it from more of an artistic standpoint? Or do you feel like, the tool is whatever the artist, the artist that's utilizing?
Yeah, I do. I think that, for instance, when we were shooting movie 42, and we had, the camera crew running around the bases, following Chad, and I'm keeping up with them by foot, and they're in a golf court, and it's like, swapping out, batteries and this thing, and that point we would overheat and run down. How that's improved 20-fold.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like things are only getting better on that level, and it makes it easier, and it makes it, we never heard of a DIT before. Now it is commonplace, the digital imaging technician. And before it was always the first AC or second AC would handle something like that. That kind of workload just makes that more efficient as things are going. They can go in the truck and see the color correction feeling right there and reshoot it on the spot. That's amazing.
That is incredible.
And the whole thing with using a red, like in a green screen digital setting, my God, I already have my imagination when I'm playing with that. I mean, it's amazing. I can have, a Trump rally with these people cheering on and put anybody in there I want, and make them.
Or a Harris Walls rally for anybody else.
Right. and well, she's I never want to see her on there because she's so great in person.
Yeah,
you
she
know.
is. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're looking forward to that thing. But those kind of things, I mean, it is limitless what you can do with it and play with it. That's the experiment. I want to get on the ground floor and play with it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Okay, and as we travel with you, Dee, tell us a little bit more about your installation over at the Academy and what we can learn from that, and more importantly, what does that mean to you to teach people about your journey?
Well, the Academy was fortuitous, especially in the respect I was looking for a place to house many of my archives. I mean, I have literally, I would say,
You
close
said
to.
30,000.
The Academy has
The
30,000,
Academy? Yeah,
but
exactly.
I would estimate I probably have close to a million pictures between SIPA in Paris and Keystone in London and Zuma in the U.S. of the conventions,
Yes, yes.
the events, America's Cup. I mean, I have so many pictures I can't even begin to think about how many. I've been a hustler, and I brag about it because that to me is the way we survive. And
I was
like
just
said,
going to say that it's survival. That's
Yeah.
how we do it, especially in this field. You have that we have to hustle to survive.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
what I always say. People I make a joke about when we're in England. How do you tell a photographer, without a girlfriend? And quick answer was, he's homeless. And it's hustling one way or another. How I got through school, I said, how many times I actually had an apartment? I said, not that many. But you hustle, and it's a good hustle. It's like what was the politician said? It's a good fight, fight, and it keeps you on your toes. It keeps. To this day, I find myself doing things physically that many people would have long since given up. Why do you give up motorcycle? Why do you give this? Why do you give that? Well, time would tell, but until that happens, you go for it.
Do you have anything? Because I have one
Yeah,
more thing that I want
and anything that you can impart for someone who's trying to be the next version of you, of themselves in terms of getting into the space. Just anything that comes off the top of your head about the archetype of the person that needs to, have
a good
this
story. Be out on the lookout for a good story, whether it's your story. I used to teach a course down in San Diego, and just one of the summers when I was with Newsweek. I come into third college, and my course is called Effects of Photojournalism on 20th Century America. First thing I did was take them over and introduce them to a black box. And across the street here we have camera obscura, because everything's about light and shadow and feeling. That's what life is in photography. So my course, I told people, bring it close to home. First thing I want you to do is get something that's really, really dear to you and document it. I don't care how good you are, I don't care how you play with it, but just think about you conveying it in a black box and you putting their image there. And people would come in, like I said, I have no subject. I said, what does your dad do in the morning? He brushes his teeth. Go for it.
Document it. Yeah.
And document it. And other people did. One guy, went out and did a Mexico gay initiation. It shocked the hell out of me, but it was bad. Technically, it was bad. The next time he did it, it wasn't bad. He made a point of he's going to tell a story, and he wanted to tell it good. So he had a purpose for telling the right story at the right time, and that's how you learn. When I went out and shot a story, it meant food to me. It's like, hey, you know what? If you don't shoot good, somebody else is going to take your job. And to this day, there are photographers, when I go to New York, what do I tell them? Well, now they're older, but I would say, I'm here to take food from your job. And they would laugh, but it was like, that's what hustle is.
Yeah.
They're not my enemy, but but we're in competition. And the closest people I've been with have always been fellow photojournalists who go out, not studio photographers, not paparazzis, no, the people who put their lives on the line and say, hey, we got to tell this story because our lives are on the line. And one final thing, my best editor, my first editor, a guy named Tom Moore in Newsweek, and I was living in London, and we goes back in time where we talked by telex. That's how long ago it was. But he would say, Dee, death is not a good excuse to have a bad picture. The worst thing in the world, someone picks up from your dead hands a camera, opens up, develops a picture, and it's out of focus.
Mm.
So he said,
Yeah.
always gotta be think on that level. So every time, so we trained ourselves. Like when I walk outside with the Leica, my hands will go to my side and adjust the aperture and or the shutter speed automatically. When I walked inside, boom, same thing. You know, you always were prepared, and you always know your reciprocity factors. You always know your zone system, and you're always aware of that. Nothing happens by perchance, and but the soul of the game is to convey the best picture you can. When that baby was born, I thought it was dead. Came to life to me. I considered it almost a miracle.
Mhm.
You know, it's like it was phenomenal. And letting a woman, in her most worst case scenario, having a baby under drugs, and she's allowing me into her life. You think I'm gonna blow that?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you know, I should be shot. You know, if I blew that. I mean, she's giving me this honor, this trust, and I take that as a real privilege.
Last thing I know I have for you that I'm curious about, because this job is a physically demanding position at times. For you, how do you feel? What do you speak to in terms of health and physical fitness while doing this job,
I
and
can
the
tell you,
importance of it?
it's. I mean, if you're not in shape, I don't know how people can do it. I mean, for me, physically, I'm a very physical person.
Mhm.
So I am an extreme person. I have that personality trait. Like I love black diamonds. I did until after this surgery and everything. I'm sort of like weary what I'm gonna do, but I still say, hey, you know, I can do the blues in Lake Tahoe. I may not be able to double blacks in Val d'Isere,
Mhm.
but I can still, you know, I haven't gotten on one yet. But I'm not giving. But you know, I gave up rollerblading. I gave up motorcycles. Certain things I'm realistically about, but I'll be as physical shape as you can be, because you're going to go down fighting at the end of the day.
Copy that. Love that.